Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today and welcome to today's session on an introduction to apprenticeships and health data science. I will be co-hosting, guiding you through the apprenticeships and the pathways available, while Fiona will be sharing her perspective as a health data scientist working in the field. Together, we'll give you both the big picture and a real-world view of how apprenticeships can help develop careers in health data science. So here's a quick overview of of what we will be covering in today's session. Whilst we're covering this, you should have a poll pop up on your screen. So please do share your answers, and we can cover this as we are near the end of the presentation. First, Fiona will walk us through what is health data science, helping us understand how data is shaping healthcare innovation and the opportunities it creates for careers in the space. Second, we'll take a closer look at understanding apprenticeships. I'll explain how apprenticeships work, how they're funded, and how there's such a powerful way to upskill the workforce while people remain in roles. And finally, we'll explore the data and AI apprenticeship pathways. This is where you'll see the different options available, and from entry-level programs to advanced data science and AI engineering, and how they can support both individuals and organizations in capability. So that's the plan. Before we do get into today's content, a quick introduction from us as your speakers. My name is Tanu, and I work in the NHS and public sector team at Cambridge Spark. In my role, I work strategically with NHS Trust to support workforce development in digital data and AI skills, so making sure teams have the right capabilities to meet the challenges of the future. And from our work at Cambridge Spark, we see firsthand the impact learners, particularly for me in the NHS, gain new skills that is not just technical. It changes how teams work and ultimately improves patient outcomes. So that's a little bit about me. And now I'll hand over to Fiona, who will introduce herself and share more about her background.
Thanks so much, Tano. So hi everyone, I'm Fiona. I'm an early career health data scientist at the British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre. I'm just going to move on to my slides. And today I'm going to talk a bit about what health data science is with some examples from the centre. Just very quickly, if you've not heard of our centre before, we're a partnership between the British Heart Foundation and Health Data Research UK, and our mission is to improve the cardiovascular health of the UK using big data and analytics. So what is health data science? Well, data science in general can be thought of as the intersection of three things. You've probably seen this Venn diagram before. So you've got your quantitative skills like maths and stats, then you've got your programming, so computer science, coding ability, and then you've got your domain knowledge. And of course here the domain is health, and this is where you're bringing your clinical context into the quantitative and programming skills. And so it's using those three skill sets to analyse information about people, ultimately their health, to improve healthcare for all. So we've put up a poll that's we're interested to know what part of this Venn diagram you come from, what your background is. Maybe you don't sit anywhere in this Venn diagram right now, that's fine. It'd be really interesting to know who we're speaking to today. So yeah, maybe you already work in health, but you're looking to advance your quantitative skills, or maybe you've worked in data before, but not worked with health. So yeah, please do fill that poll out, and we'll have a look at that at the end. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to move on to talk a bit about what's different what's the difference between health data and normal data science. So I think the thing that sort of drew me to this field is I feel like health data does have a direct link to the real world. So often the work that you're doing does actually impact patients' lives, and it can affect policy and treatment guidelines, for example. So that got me thinking a bit about what else is different with health data. So I thought I would talk through some of the unique challenges, but also the opportunities that come with working in health data. So we'll do the challenges first. So the first thing is data sensitivity and confidentiality. So I think health data is probably some of the most sensitive data that you can get. There's also ethical considerations to think about as well. So you need to balance patient privacy with research benefit, for example. Another big challenge is the bias in data. Now, there's bias in all data, that's important to say, but it's particularly important that we understand and know what the biases are in health data. So biases in ethnicity, deprivation, geographical location, for example, so that we can ultimately control for that in our research and draw conclusions that are not going to exacerbate these biases even further. Another challenge is access to data. So it can be pretty hard to get your hands on health data, and it should be, but it's very sensitive data. So often there's very lengthy approval processes to go through before you can work in this data. You often have to work on it in secure environments. You can't just download it to your local machine, for example. So it can make working in health data a little bit slower than working in other domains. Another thing to think about is data quality. Again, there's data quality issues no matter the domain you're in. It's just really important that you understand the types of data quality issues that come with working in health data. So I'm going to give a very specific example from working at the British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre. So we typically work with population-wide data, and it's electronic health records that we're working with. So that's data that's collected when you're going to see your GP, going to a hospital, getting a prescription, and the main point here is that it's data that's not been collated specifically for research purposes, but we are using it for research purposes. So really important that we understand how it was collected and input. So, the way that it's input might actually change from clinician to clinician, from health board to health board. So really important that we understand that and we account for that in our research. So there might be inconsistencies in coding and recording, for example. There's probably a lot of incomplete records. There quite often can be a data lag from that data being input by a clinician to reaching us as well. Another challenge is the scale of data. Quite a specific example from the work I do again. But like I said, we're working with electronic health records at a population-wide level. So if you think of just one person and how many times they've been to the GP, a hospital, how many prescriptions you've had in your life, lab results, measurements like HbA1c, blood pressure, height, weight, that's a lot of data just for one person. And then you multiply that up by a population, 3 populations to be exact, because we work in Scotland, Wales and England. That's a lot of data. It's actually billions of rows of data. So we're not typically working with your usual code and languages and the usual environments that you might work with in other domains. We need sort of special tools and special environments to work with such a large scale of data. And again, it can just make working with health data a little bit slower than other domains. But let's move on to the opportunities. So I think, the first thing, and like I've already mentioned, you can have an impact on a patient's life. And patients are really important and at the centre of our research at the British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre. So we work really closely with patients and public. It's really important they know that their data has been used, how it's been used, why it's been used, to ensure that they trust what us and what we're doing. And also we ensure that our patients and public feed into the research process from start to finish. Like I said, you can then have an impact on policy. If you understand the biases and the data, you can ensure that you have equity in your research and your results. There's a good opportunity for collaboration. So this is another thing that I really like about working in health data. I'm a health data scientist, but I'm not just working with other health data scientists day to day. I'm really lucky I get to work with clinicians, epidemiologists, researchers, project managers, the patients, the public. I think that's really a really nice approach to problem solving. You get all these different perspectives and diverse backgrounds coming together to solve these problems. And then innovation. So like I said, we're working with a lot of data. It can be a bit slow, but with that comes a lot of innovation, and we get to work with some cool new tools, and that's quite fun. So just to touch a little bit more on the sort of collaboration part then and talk about the ecosystem, this is quite specific to how we work at the centre and the roles that we have. So I just wanted to highlight, you don't have to be directly working with data to work in health data. So there's other roles. So first of all, I wanted to mention project managers. They're really the ones who are shaping all the research that we do, and they're delivering on the outputs. We've got clinical roles as well. So they're, again, not working day to day with the data, sometimes not even opening Excel week to week, but they're sort of pushing and driving the sort of science and the clinical context of the work that we do. There's roles that bridge the gap between all of the work that we do and the patients and the public. Again, really ensuring that trust with the patients and the public. And then on the right-hand side of the slide here, this is your more data roles. These are the roles that are more working with data day to day. So I just wanted to highlight, it really depends where you're working as to you might do a bit of all these roles. So I'm a health data scientist and I typically get to do a bit of engineering, a bit of analyst work, and I can also be a statistician. That might be different if you work elsewhere. A lot of the time the roles are like pulled apart and they are quite distinct. So something to keep in mind. I do like working across all three of these roles. It does tend to mean that I sort of get to be involved in projects from start to finish. But I suppose that means you could say I'm kind of like jack of all trades, master of none. So, you know, it does depend on where you're working. So I thought I would just very quickly talk about some of the pathways to data science then. So honestly, mine is quite boring. I think when you think of a data scientist, you do think of somebody coming from a maths and stats background, and I do. I started doing accountancy and finance. I absolutely hated it and I dropped out. I was lucky I got a job working as a genius at Apple. So I was fixing people's MacBooks, the hardware and software. That kind of gave me an introduction to computing and programming. Whilst I was doing my master's in statistics, I worked as a biostatistician on ophthalmic data. I've also worked as a data analyst at the University of Edinburgh on a cohort study, and now I'm here. But the rest of my team, they're a bit more interesting. So some people do have a very quantitative background like myself, but everybody has such different diverse pathways to get here. So some people, we've got history degrees, psychology, neuroscience. People have accessed this domain via internships. Most people have not always worked in health data either. They've worked in other domains. So a lot of people have worked in finance, logistics, for example, and this is just our health data science team. Then we've got our wider team that includes the project managers and the clinical leads as well. And again, all weird and wonderful backgrounds. So I just really wanted to stress that there's many different pathways as to how you can get into health data science. And I'm going to talk about the skills. So, you know, this is maybe, there's skills that you can gain through the apprenticeship, which Tano is going to talk more about. But in terms of the hard skills, Health Data Research UK also have materials that you can access. They've got training platforms and they also host workshops. So if you really wanted to advance your quantitative skills, I would advise you to grab these QR codes. For example, there's workshops in coding in R, and it's split up by ability level. There's also a distributed computing workshop. Distributed computing is something that we do at the centre. It's how we're able to work with such large scale data. So that would, you know, a few suggestions on how to upskill in your the sort of hard skills. I also want to talk about more of like the soft skills that you need to become a health data scientist or work in health data. And I think honestly, these are as important as the sort of coding skills. So the first thing is communication. You need to communicate every day. I'm a natural introvert, so this took me a while to get used to. But like I said, we're working with lots of different people. So I'm working often with clinicians, epidemiologists, and believe it or not, we kind of all speak different languages. So you've got to understand the way each other speak. You've got to be able to translate across disciplines. So you've got to be able to connect your data to the clinical world and vice versa. You've got to be able to storytell with your data. There's obviously so much you can do with data, but it's really important to understand what are your research aims and what your questions are, and be able to tell a story with that data to answer them. Documentation is really important as well. At British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre, we feel very strongly about transparency and creating work that's reusable. We want our code to be picked up by other people and reran. So it's, you know, really important that we're documenting what we're doing day to day. And the other thing is domain curiosity. I think you've honestly got to really be into health data. So like I said, I started studying accountancy and finance, absolutely hated it. I wasn't interested at all, whereas I am really interested in health data. And that helps, so that if you've got a tricky problem or you come across something a bit weird, I do have the motivation to go on and investigate that. I can't say I would have had that working in finance. I'm not sure I would have really cared as much. So yeah, you do have to be able to connect the disciplines. You got to be able to challenge assumptions. So kind of going back to what I was talking about with the data quality, you've got to be able to understand if something is truly a clinical result or it's just due to a data anomaly, for example. Is it actually a result, or is it just due to the way that the data was collated in the first place? And again, context awareness. Again, that was with what I was talking about. You need to be very aware of how the data came together and how the clinicians are inputting that data in the real world. Yeah, so very quickly, I don't have time to talk about everything I do day to day. I am really lucky, like I said, I get to work across different role types, so I get to do a bit of everything. But I did just want to highlight that a lot of data involves the data curation, sort of cleaning and preparation part. It's not all glam working with machine learning, AI, ChatGPT, etc. And I actually do think there is a statistic that you might have already heard in some talks before, and that 80% of the analysis involves data cleaning and preparation. And having a few jobs and having done quite a lot of projects, I can say that is true. So there's just so much data that exists now, and it's messy, and a lot of it doesn't even exist in a structured format. So a lot of the day-to-day job is just getting data into format that means you're able to use it for analysis. But I get to work with researchers, and there's that research collaboration part. Do also get to do really cool stuff like build tools and dashboards and develop algorithms. So the work is very varied. And just very quickly, a sort of real world example, something that I've been working on for about a year and a half now is developing a diabetes algorithm. So this algorithm is able to classify people in the English population as to whether they have diabetes or not and what type of diabetes they have. And that's using those electronic health records that I was talking about at the beginning. So it was developed with data scientists and clinicians, so a real collaborative approach. We released that algorithm in pipeline, so this is sort of the engineering part of the job, so that researchers can pick up this algorithm and run it and find who has diabetes in their population. We've created dashboards on it, we're writing a paper on it, and we worked really closely with patients and public through the whole process as well. So really nice that I got to be involved in that project from start to finish, and it's also really nice to see your work being used by other people. I just wanted to very quickly talk on the breadth of health data science. I mean, my examples are very specific to the British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre, and we are only really working with cardiovascular data, but we have such a reach even with the work we do. We work with so many institutions across the UK. These are the universities that we most commonly work with, and we work with lots of different other charities. And yeah, again, that's just working in a cardiovascular space. There's so many other different areas of health data that you can explore. And yeah, just to finish on why I do this and why I think this is important, the work that you can do does have an impact. So these are articles that have come out in the past few years, and it's directly from work that my colleagues have done at the British Heart Foundation Data Science Centre, and it's work that was looking at those electronic health records. So, you know, they have had a direct impact on policy. So yeah, I'm going to hand back over to Tanu, and thank you so much for listening, and looking forward to any of your questions.
Thank you, Fiona. If you guys have any questions, yeah, please use the chat function, and yeah, we'll be happy to get around to answering your questions whilst we're going through the presentation. To start off with, Cambridge Spark and Health Data Research UK have been working in partnership for over 5 years now. HDR UK were early supporters of the Level 7 and AI Data Science Apprenticeship Standard, and we've continued to work together ever since with the shared focus on educating and upskilling those working in health data. In fact, a number of HDR UK staff have come through our programs themselves, which shows the real value and impact of this collaboration. But our commitment within the sector goes even further. We also work closely with AnalystX, the NHS Leadership Academy, the NHS Data and Analytics Academy as well. So together, these partnerships underline our mission to support people pursuing careers in health data science and ultimately to help improve the future of healthcare. In addition, through these partnerships, communities across the health sector come together to share learning and best practice, which in turn accelerates the adoption of new approaches. Just wanted to take a step back with this slide in terms of apprenticeships and talk more about what apprenticeships actually are. At its core, apprenticeships are a way to upskill the workforce through structured work-based training, fully funded in England through the government's apprenticeship levy. They're designed for people already in employment, so learners can develop new skills, knowledge, behaviors directly in their role while making a real impact for their organization. So typically these programs run 12 to 15 months and finish with a final endpoint assessment. So giving learners an accredited qualification and employees measurable capability uplift. For instance, we've worked with data analysts who are able to move from producing reports to actually building predictive models that forecast demand, all while still in their full-time role. There is an eligibility element to this, and to be eligible for the apprenticeships, there are a few key requirements. So learners need to be employed in England in a relevant role where they can apply the new skills on the job, and their employer must commit to supporting them with the protected learning time. They also need to meet certain residency and right to work criteria, and crucially, apprenticeships should be delivering new skills. So candidates shouldn't already have significant prior experience or qualifications in the subject. For younger learners under 19, there are also requirements around maths and English, but for most of our programs, we're typically working with existing professionals already in the workforce. Some common questions we get asked about apprenticeships are typically are apprenticeships for junior staff, or does it mean hiring new staff? The answer to both is actually no. So the programs are designed for existing employees, whether they're early career professionals or senior managers who need to develop digital and AI skills. And in fact, I believe the average age across all our apprenticeships is about 38. So giving you a bit of an idea that it's not, it's you can look at upskilling in data and AI throughout your career. It may be helpful to first understand the broader context of our approach at Cambridge Spark, and the way we do with apprenticeships. We operate under a concept of a data and AI academy, a structured framework designed to support skill development across the entire workforce, no matter an individual's role or level of interaction with data. The the visual on this slide outlines that journey. So our goal is to make sure every professional, whether they're working with data directly or influencing decisions around it, has access to the right training to perform effectively and confidently. It's also about preparing for the future, so equipping people with capabilities that are becoming essential in today's data-driven world. And as Fiona mentioned, if whether you're working with data or indirectly or directly, there is some involvement around, upskilling in data and AI. The academy is structured into three main pathways. Data citizens, to start off with, and where we get the most demand and most learners enroll on, are often come from backgrounds or roles in as administrators, technicians, or coordinators. They tend to use tools like spreadsheets, generate reports, and present insights through dashboards. We then have data translators. So these may be professionals who may not know how to code every day or have no need to code every day, but play a vital role in guiding organizational change, and ensuring data and AI are used to make strategic decisions. We then have the data experts, so technical roles such as data analysts, data engineers, AI engineers, and data scientists. These programs are designed for people already working in or moving into specialist technical positions. We also have the leaders as well. So that's a leadership level 5 AI leader, which is a leadership focused program for senior managers or managers managing teams, who are looking to build their leadership capabilities along with applying AI, to streamline processes as well as making processes much more efficient. And an important point on this slide is you don't need to start at the bottom and make your way up. The academy is role and relevance based. The apprenticeship level, whether that's 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, matters less than ensuring the content is directly applicable to your role. So everything is built to be hands-on, so you can take what you learn and apply it immediately into your day-to-day work. Let's say, for example, one of the learners we've supported is an NHS administrator on our data citizen pathway, who was able to build a dashboard that saved their clinical team 10 hours a week. At translator level, we've trained managers to understand how to scope AI projects. And at expert level, we've helped or supported engineers building machine learning models that directly support patient care. So It may be good for you to understand what a program looks like, how it's outlined, the core modules, the delivery of it. So on this slide, we'll cover those key aspects, and we'll look at we'll have a deeper dive into the level 7 AI and data science apprenticeship and what it looks like. At its core, the program develops advanced professionals who can turn raw data into insights that drive strategy. Data scientists act as a bridge between complex data and decision making, ultimately helping the organizations become more data-driven and competitive. So what would that look like in practice? A data scientist would typically collect and clean large data sets, build models using machine learning and statistics, and use data to forecast trends, optimize processes, or personalize services, to name a few. This particular apprenticeship equips learners to do exactly that, but with a cutting edge of AI techniques, data science techniques, and they will be directly applied into their workplace. The curriculum is built around core modules that combine technical depth and practical application. Just conscious of time, what I'll do is I'll highlight one or two modules just to give you a bit of context. So we'll start off with the data science toolbox. Learners in this particular module, learners will sharpen their skills with the essential tools of the trade. They become fluent in Python with Jupyter notebooks, or use NumPy for numerical computing, Pandas for data manipulation, or Git for version control and collaboration. So by the end of that module, they can confidently manage data sets, structure experiments, and collaborate on code bases in an industry standard way, laying the foundation for everything that follows. And let's just pick out another module. So let's say introduction to machine learning. So this module moves from handling data to building models. So in this particular module, learners will cover the full machine learning pipeline, from defining the problem to pre-processing data and selecting algorithms, through to training and evaluation. So there's a strong focus that is placed on linear regression, not just how to apply it, but to also understand the maths behind it. Learners also experiment hands-on with Python tools like scikit-learn, ensuring that they can both build models and judge their validity and business value. Overall, this program is a 15-month applied learning journey to it. So that's the practical learning period, followed by an endpoint assessment period of up to 6 months. We have most of our learners do complete the endpoint assessment period in 3 to 4 months, but you can take up to the 6 months, and that's the flexible side to it. The 15-month practical learning period is something that's set in stone to ensure you are staying on track and complete the apprenticeship in a timely manner. In terms of application and work-based projects, the learning is applied through the work-based projects. So these projects are scoped with your line managers to align with business priorities, whether that's building a recommender system, creating a forecasting model, or deploying AI into its production. That ensures that every learner drives measurable value back to the organization whilst on the program. In terms of the endpoint assessment, the apprenticeship concludes with the EPA. So this is where learners showcase their capabilities and impact. It's made up of 3 parts for the level 7, project report and presentation, demonstrating a significant AI or data science solution that they've built in their workplace, explaining the methodology, tools, and measurable business impact. The second part of the EPA is a professional discussion. So it's structured where the learner reflects on their technical skills, ethical considerations, and professional behaviors. The third element is a technical exam, which is scenario based. You have about 100 minutes to answer 6 to 7 questions. And of course, learners will get continued support from their data mentors and learner success coach whilst on the program. There is a suitability element for the program, but it's slightly different in terms of, for a level 7, that's particularly at master's level. For the level 7 program, no prior data degree is required. Be comfortable working with data, have regular experience using Python, or be confident transferring another language like R. So as Fiona mentioned, if you're using some of these tools, it's an opportunity to develop and also learn in Python. Have a good foundation in statistics and linear algebra, and also importantly, you need to be in a role where you can apply predictive modeling and machine learning techniques. So in summary, the level 7 and AI and data science apprenticeship will look at developing learners or giving them the mastery of advanced AI and machine learning, whilst grounding everything in place within their workplace. Learners will graduate with the ability to build, deploy, and explain AI solutions that deliver measurable business impact. and they will be proving that through their endpoint assessment period. And finally, just wanted to highlight whilst we're on this slide, from January 2026, the government funding policy will change for level 7 apprenticeships, including this one. The policy changes that it will be restricted to individuals aged 16 to 21. So that's something to factor in if you're planning to enroll on a level 7 apprenticeship in the future. For the level 7 AI and data science, particularly at Cambridge Spark, we will be looking at running a cohort in November if anyone will be interested in looking at that. One of the things that really makes this program different is the human element of the support learners receive. Learners aren't just left to figure things out on their own. They have people walking alongside them at every stage. On the technical side, they're supported by a data mentor. There's the experienced practitioners, could be PhD holders or senior data scientists who know what it's like to apply advanced techniques into the real world. They're the go-to person or individuals for questions around coding, modeling, and project delivery, and they help ensure learners that translate theory into practice. Alongside that, each learner also has a learner success coach. Their role is more about guidance, motivation, and well-being, making sure that the learner stays on track, builds confidence, and develops those professional skills like communication and time management. So between the mentor and the coach, learners get the best of both worlds, the deep technical expertise and a holistic personal guidance. And that combination is what makes the learning stick while helping them grow as professionals. And also to provide a bit of context and some experience working with learners, we've had learners who have told us having a mentor gave them the confidence to tackle coding challenges, whilst the coach helped them build the confidence to present their work to senior clinicians. So it's that blend in technical and personal support that makes the difference. So that does bring us to the end of today's session. So we've covered what health data science is, how apprenticeships work, and the different pathways available to help develop the skills within the NHS and the wider health sector really need. So I would love to open up the chat function to hear from you, whether it's questions around eligibility, the programs themselves, some of the bits that Fiona covered. And also, whilst you guys are thinking of questions, we should have another poll pop up in front of your screen. So feel free to interact with it and we can use it as a discussion point. And of course, if you'd like to explore this further after today, we do have a second session next week on the 16th of September at 12 o'clock as well. So we'll be looking at things like emerging trends, reshaping healthcare data science, broadening your career trajectory, and sustaining success whilst learning. And at the same time, if you do have any questions about today's session, you can reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to continue the conversation. And we've shared the links in front of you in terms of how to communicate with us after the session. Thank you for listening. So I'll just open up the chat and go through any questions. Both Fiona and I will be happy to answer any questions in there. Fiona, I believe this might be for you. Are there many jobs in this area? Are there all the cuts in the NHS at the moment? So I'll let you answer the first bit, and then I'll take the NHS one.
Yes, I mean, that's hard to say. I think when I first left university, I did want to work within health, and I did find it quite difficult to find a job within health, but I will say I didn't really know what I was looking for. My master's sort of gave me, and things like this apprenticeship, I think would have given me an idea of where to look for health jobs. But yeah, there's so many different areas of health data that you can work within, different types of health data. And then there's also different types of data roles themselves. So like I said, there's like more engineering, analyst roles, statistician roles. But yeah, it can be quite difficult to figure out when you're brand new, figure out where to look for jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, and back to your point on the second part of that, and appreciate you are you mentioned what's currently happening with the strategy across the NHS. We are finding it's not just data roles applying for the apprenticeships and transitioning into data roles. We have got people taking the pathway and specializing in data as well. So it's something that would be dependent on your career progression, and also something you can have a conversation internally with your line manager as well. Hope that answers the question. We've got one from Amrita: how to get into data health science while working full-time in my present job. Fiona, would that be for you?
Yeah, I mean, I also worked not quite full time. I worked 35 hours when I was doing my master's. It was really it was hard. I will say there is lots of material out there. Like there's lots of great YouTube channels dedicated to data science and also health data science. I think if you're struggling with time, a really good thing is to try and do little work and little projects maybe. There's lots of data that you can get online nowadays, access to free data. A lot of it is synthetic data. That's something I tried to do, and sort of I would work in projects for a few months, create my own sort of research question. It just helped me get used to coding. It is hard to upskill and work full time though. I do appreciate that.
We've got a couple of questions for you, Fiona. This one, Rajan: are there any internships offered for master students pursuing health data science course in the UK?
Yes, there's lots. I mean, I think there's lots more internships available nowadays. I might not be the best person with access to this, but there are members of HR UK who would probably be able to point you in that direction. I don't know who that question came from, but if you wanted to message me privately, I could look into that a bit further for you. But there's internship programs at Health Data Research UK if you look them up, and I'm sure there's other ones that exist as well.
Thank you. And I think that will answer Martin's question as well around finding health data science graduate jobs and schemes at entry level for new international graduates. So just back to the point around Fiona, it could be something that HDR UK colleagues can support on. Chris, I believe Chris's question has been answered. Presently, I do not work anything related in data science. Can I join an apprenticeship? Amrita, a really good question. This is where we will do that suitability check for you. So depending on the level of data you're working with, we'll have that consultation call and recommend the right level of program for you to join. And from there, you can look at a pathway for you to develop in that data career. How can I join the apprenticeship from Ashjail? Ashjail, just you can see the QR code in front of you. If you scan that, there's more information on how to get in contact with us at Cambridge Spark, and we can share more information on the processes you need to follow when joining an apprenticeship. From Chris: how do I know which level is appropriate for me? Really good question again, Chris. Again, we can have a further in-depth discussion, just more around your role, job responsibilities, and recommend the right level of program for you. Mahesh: I have never had direct programming experience except for my experience extensively using health data, using tools like Excel. Will I be eligible? I currently do not hold a job. Really good question, Mahesh. So the apprenticeships and the way they work is you need to be either employed full-time or be in a fixed-term contract that covers the full duration of the apprenticeship. It is your employer that has access to the apprenticeship levy. So we would recommend that you look at applying for an apprenticeship when you're in a position or when you're in a role, as that's when you'll be able to access the funding through the apprenticeship levy. When will the age restriction come into play? Good question, Miski. From January 2026 is when it comes into play. And as I mentioned, in November this year is when we're launching our last cohort for the level 7. Again, if you have questions, feel free to message me privately or reach out to us at Cambridge Spark. Is there any criteria from Dilip? Is there any criteria that makes someone ineligible for this, i.e. already a data science role? Your role wouldn't make you ineligible. It just would give us a guidance for your suitability and the level you need to enroll on. What would make you ineligible is your prior qualifications and your experience. Again, as I mentioned, that's where the consultation call will come in. we can double check in terms of what your knowledge and prior qualifications are and recommend the right level of program. But given you're in a data science role, you may be already working with bits that are suitable for the level 7, let's say as an example. Amrita, I've learned Python and R programming. Okay, thank you. So yeah, we can definitely discuss that further. This is one for you, Fiona. Do you partner with universities at all?
In terms of to upskill, or sorry, I don't see where this question is.
From
Through some of our internship programs, again, I'm really sorry, I'm not the best person to talk to about this, but we have done internships via universities before. So I know a lot of our PhD programs, I know that's not what we're talking about here, do partner with universities. Again, I don't know who that comment was for. If you do want to message me privately, I can try and get you the relevant information on that from somebody from HR UK.
I can expand on that as well. In terms of apprenticeships, yeah, we do partner with universities. If that is a broader question for both Fiona and I, yeah, it is something that we can support with on apprenticeships. From Catherine, is there any guidance on how organisations can fund level 7 apprenticeships after levy support ends? If you enroll before January 2026, you will be continued to be funded for the duration of the program. It is only if you enroll after January 2026 is when the new funding policy change comes in. I hope that answers the question, Catherine, but feel free to just post another question. So this may be for both of us, Fiona. So what are the opportunities in the startup sector?
I honestly don't know much about the startup sector, Tanu, sorry.
Okay, so in terms of apprenticeships, yeah, we can have that conversation. We just need to find out a bit more details in terms of what that looks like. Again, feel free to message us privately. Chinedu, our master's degree student eligible to enroll for the apprenticeship? Yep, you can enroll on the level 7, as long as first of all you're not on the master's degree at the moment that's funded through funded through student finance, and that you're not doing a qualification that is directly relatable to the modules that's taught on the level 7 apprenticeship, so data analysis or data science, let's say as an example. Amber, I am new to the UK, do not meet the residence requirements here on an ancestry visa. Would you know where I could look for apprenticeships that I could be eligible for? So through the apprenticeship levy, in terms of being eligible for funding, you do need to meet the residency requirements of 3 years in the UK. We do recommend learners wait till the 3-year mark comes in. But if your visa is slightly different, we can do those checks for you as well. So if you could message us privately, we'll double check for you. From Mark, the eligibility criteria states that the contract is in place for the duration of the course. Does this apply if self-learning? I'm unsure if my current role will continue due to the changes in the NHS. Really good point, Mark. We can definitely pick this up privately, but yeah, we can support learners that are currently on an apprenticeship and move to a new role as well, but I can provide more context if you just let us know. Pragya, one of the eligibility criteria mentioned here is being in work or with an employer. I'm currently unemployed, but I have a clinical health background and public health project management experience. Is there any pathway for someone like me to join? As Pragya, as I mentioned, for you to be eligible for funding through the apprenticeship levy, you need to be employed, or you can look at but yeah, to be funded through the apprenticeship levy, it's you need to be employed, whether fixed term contract or in full-time employment. Just conscious of time, I'll go through the next couple of questions. If people need to jump off and I've not answered your question, feel free to message us privately and we'll get back to you with any questions. Just the last couple of questions. Amrita, yes, you can just reach out to us and we'll book some time in with you for a one-to-one. Fiona, please can I get your contact and message you directly? So from Chinadu.
Yeah, so I think Rosie has put up our HRUK email. So if you email learn@hruk.ac.uk, we'll be able to get back to you on that.
Perfect. And the last question I can see from Catherine is, who was interested in funding after the January 2026 are the Level 7 program. The Level 7 programs are not being terminated fully, but they've been restricted to 16 to 21-year-olds. So anyone outside of that bracket won't be eligible to enroll on the program through the apprenticeship levy. Perfect. So I believe we've gone through all the questions. We will have a look through the private conversations as well and get back to everyone. But yeah. If just one question came through. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining. If anyone has any questions after this session, feel free to reach out to us through the links on here. We'll be happy to continue the conversation. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next session as well next week. Thank you.